Welcome to lesson number 1, the market context. I'm your instructor, Nathan Kinch. I'm one of the co-founders of Greater Than Learning. Today we'll cover number 1, what data ethics is and how it's defined. Number 2, we'll provide a quick overview of some high-profile approaches across the public and private sectors. Number 3, we'll discuss the duplication and overlap of principles-based approaches. Number 4, we'll discuss the misalignment between principles and practices and the intent to action gap that's plaguing these efforts today. And number 5, we will highlight the missed opportunity and the value that's currently unrealized. By the end of this lesson, you will, number 1, be able to identify key reasons that contribute to the need for an operational approach to data ethics. Number 2, you'll have further developed an understanding of the business and societal value not being realized. Number 3, you'll have further developed your confidence to have discussions about the market context with colleagues and within the Greater Than Learning community. Number 4, we hope you can breathe a sigh of relief. There are more people working on this than ever before. You are not alone. So let's start with a definition. The one you see here comes from some important and well-referenced work from the Royal Society. And funnily enough, this is actually the condensed definition of data ethics. Now, what we can see from this definition is that data ethics relates broadly to the ethical implications of a variety of data processing activities. Over the last few years, particularly since the start of 2019, data ethics has become a hot topic. A variety of principles-based approaches have emerged all around the world. Some of these come in the form of self-regulation attempts from corporations. Others come from working groups, standards organizations, and other institutional categories. What they all have in common is that they're principles-based. And because of this, there's quite a lot of duplication. All of these initiatives keep arriving at similar conclusions. It seems that we, the Royal, generally agree on the ethical principles that matter most. The AI Ethics Lab broadly categorized all of these principles into 4 key groups: autonomy, no harm, benefit, and justice. Even though duplication is quite an issue, the more pressing concern is that these approaches have largely failed to date. Some of them have failed somewhat publicly, like Google's now infamous attempt to establish an external data ethics board. Others have failed in more subtle ways, mostly due to the difficulties that are associated with an over-reliance on principles. So why is this? As in, what's the actual cause? Well, like any causal relationships, it's hard to say for sure, but we're led to believe it comes down to goals and incentives. In many cases, organizations, they come out saying great things. They develop agreeable principles. They communicate about them verbally or in writing. They commit to act upon them. But this action, it's just not there. There's a misalignment between principles and practices. There is an intent to action gap. And it's arguably plaguing progress. And this may well be because corporations so often have different goals to their customers and other stakeholders. The most preferable actions aren't always the ones that increase shareholder value. And when there are trade-offs to make, like there so often is, the business model often wins. Now you might be thinking, well, this is a bigger issue than data ethics alone. The intent to action gaps everywhere. You're right. 2020 research from MIT's Culture X demonstrated that there was no correlation between a corporation's stated values and its actions. Coming back to the context of data, this is being seen, felt, and heard. People all around the world are increasingly concerned about how their data is being used. Pew's privacy study highlights this every single year. The data hasn't changed that much for a decade. Millions and millions of people offboarding, like at the moment, from WhatsApp for more privacy-preserving alternatives. That's a pretty good recent, at the time of this recording, behavioral example that speaks to this attitudinal discomfort that we've become so familiar with. Going back in time a few years, back to 2014 to be specific, Ipsos Mori's research was interesting and arguably novel. They observed a distinct gap between general brand trust, or the trust that people place in an organization or institutional category, and the trust that that very same group of people place in the brand, organization, or institution's data practices. There was and remains to this day a data trust deficit. But arguably, all of this talk is about more than just doing the right thing. It's more than just mitigating harms from biases or inaccurate models or even mistakes. This is a big commercial opportunity. The times are changing. People want and expect better, which is highlighted by very recent research from the Ethics Centre and Deloitte Access Economics. In Australia alone, there may well be close to a $50 billion opportunity if we're able to better act on our ethical intent. So, the question is, what are we waiting for?